Do you want to know the harsh truths about learning English that nobody talks about? Today, I'm sharing 6 things that may hurt a little bit, but will actually help you learn faster. And trust me, the last one is the most polemic and the most important, so stick around until the end. As you can see, this video is entirely in English, so feel free to watch with subtitles if needed. I also recorded a version in Portuguese if you prefer, and the link of that video is in the description below. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Jackie. I'm originally from Chicago, but now I live in Florida, and I learned Portuguese from absolute zero when I was 29 years old. It's my mission to help you achieve your English goals and make the learning process simpler and more fun. So let's dive into the 6 harsh truths. Truth number 1, if you don't use it, you will lose it. Nowadays, most of us spend hours consuming content, but at the end of the day, we hardly remember anything, right? But if you watch a video, like this one, for example, and after watching, you reflect for 5 minutes on how you can apply these tips to your life, and later you tell a friend what you learned using your own words, giving real-life examples, you will remember that information for much longer than if you had just passively watched the video and then moved on to something else. So if you don't apply and practice what you're studying, chances are you'll forget almost everything. So it's really important to reflect, speak, write, practice, teach your cat, do anything, but just apply it to your real life. Truth number 2, nobody cares. Are you afraid of making mistakes or even just speaking because you might be judged? I get it. I feel that way too. But guess what? Nobody's paying attention. And if someone is being judgmental, let them. Who knows? Maybe your courage to do something difficult might inspire that person to step outside of their comfort zone and do something difficult too. It's completely normal to feel anxious or uncomfortable when doing anything new, just like speaking English. But the only way to overcome any fear is exposure and practice. So the next time that anxiety kicks in, take a breath, visualize yourself doing well, and face it head on. Every time you face the discomfort, you become more confident and less anxious. And if you want a safe community to practice speaking English and have positive experiences, come join my course. We meet weekly on Zoom to practice exactly that. And the link is in the description of this video if you're interested. Truth number 3, comprehensible input is king. Do you want to improve your listening and speaking? Well, you need to increase your comprehensible input. That means consuming content that you mostly understand. You should be able to understand around 70%, but it should also still challenge you a little. So it shouldn't be too easy, but also not so hard that you don't understand anything and get frustrated. So why is comprehensible input so effective? Number 1, you learn vocabulary in context, which boosts long-term memory. Number 2, you get used to the natural sounds of the language, which is great for learning pronunciation and listening comprehension. Number 3, you also absorb grammar structures without making a conscious effort. And number 4, most importantly, you begin to think in English without translating. This is especially important if you feel like you are stuck in that trap of constantly translating from your native language to English, which is very normal, but it's a stage. I went through this stage myself, and I know how exhausting it is, but the only way to overcome the translation trap is by increasing your comprehensible input. You have to immerse yourself more fully in the language. Eventually, you will notice that you will start speaking and saying things in a natural way without having to stop and think or without having to stop and translate. And you do this because you know what sounds right because you have listened to enough content. So here are some easy examples of how you can include more comprehensible input in your daily routine. Videos, movies, or shows in English with subtitles if needed, or without if you don't need them. Podcasts. There are podcasts for English learners or even for native speakers. It depends on your level. Audiobooks that you read and listen to or just listen to are fantastic. And a tip, look for content that interests you. If you like true crime or self-help or politics, look for content about those topics, but in English. Harsh truth number 4. Learning a little bit every day beats a weekend cram session or an immersion anytime. So, why is studying a little bit every day better than doing an intensive weekend immersion? Well, reason number 1 is the spacing effect. Herman Ebbinghaus's research shows that reviewing in short, regular intervals over a longer period of time helps overcome the forgetting curve. I talked about this in this video here if you're interested, but basically if you want to remember something long-term, you need to review it in spaced intervals over a longer period of time. Reason number 2 is lower cognitive load. Shorter study sessions reduce mental fatigue and improve retention. Reason number 3, habit formation. Daily practice builds consistency and removes dependence on willpower. You don't have to rely on your motivation or your willpower because practicing English is already a part of your daily routine. And reason number 4, memory consolidation. While we sleep, especially while in deep sleep, our brains reactivate the neural connections that we created during the day. So, daily study allows the brain to repeatedly strengthen connections during sleep, which helps us remember the information long term. And just to be clear, intensive immersions are amazing. Especially if you need a jump start to feel more motivated or if you want to really challenge yourself. However, they don't replace consistent daily practice. Try to focus on improving just 1% every day, and this 1% will add up and accumulate significantly over time. Harsh truth number 5. The man who loves walking will walk further than the man who loves the destination. This is a famous saying that perfectly describes the fact that if you enjoy learning English and fall in love with the process, you will be far more successful than someone who only wants to get results or someone who only wants to get to the finish line. Learning a language takes a lot of time and effort. And if you only focus on the finish line, you'll get frustrated. But if you enjoy the process, even the boring parts, you'll go much further. Why is this? Well, we have intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. So studies by Edward Deci and Richard Ryan show that intrinsic motivation, that motivation that comes from within you, you enjoy learning, you want to learn for yourself. That is more sustainable and effective than learning only for external rewards, such as a promotion, a degree, or a good grade on a test. So typically, when you focus on the end goal, the grade, the diploma, the promotion, every mistake is viewed as a block or a delay in getting to your end goal, which generates more frustration, right? But if you enjoy the process and your focus is on making progress and learning, these mistakes are actually celebrated and viewed as learning experiences, which makes you more resilient and you suffer much less. Another reason is neuroplasticity and pleasure. So positive emotions release dopamine, which speeds up your learning. So when you feel positive emotions while you're learning, you learn faster. So if you struggle to enjoy learning English or anything, really try to change your perspective. And I will promise you that the more you learn, the more you will enjoy it. Okay, Now for the last harsh truth. Truth number 6. Your pronunciation is more important than anything else. Grammar, vocabulary, phrasal verbs. And before you cancel me, let me explain, because obviously all of these things are very important. But ignoring pronunciation at the start only makes things harder later. You don't need perfect native-like pronunciation. But if you pronounce words wrong or with a really heavy accent, you won't be understood, and people will assume your level is much lower than it is. The example I always like to give is when I first went to Brazil in 2009, I was saying acai instead of açaí, and nobody understood me. And if someone had said açaí, I would not have understood that word, because I learned that word with the incorrect pronunciation. And honestly, if I could go back in time, or if I had to learn another language again, I would put in a lot more effort into learning the correct pronunciation from the very beginning. And this is exactly what I would do. I would learn the sounds and phonemes that are new, that don't exist in English, for example, by doing a lot of listening and identifying exercises, or listening and repeating exercises. I would do this by using online dictionaries that have audios and the IPA, or I would even use Google Translate with audios. We often learn the wrong pronunciation because we rely on our eyes. We read the word and then we pronounce it as if it were a word in our native language. However, we need to rely more on our ears. So whenever we're learning something new, try to find an audio recording of that word so that you learn the correct pronunciation. And the other thing that I would do is just immerse myself as much as possible in the language by listening to lots and lots of content so that I can get used to the different sounds, as well as the rhythm, the intonation, and the natural speech. So even if you don't understand the content, just listening to those sounds, you're training your ears just to get more comfortable with them. So I obviously do not want to make you feel anxious or prevent you from speaking with incorrect pronunciation. That is the last thing I want to do. Remember, nobody cares if you make mistakes. And we learn so much from making mistakes that mistakes are always encouraged. However, if you want to be understood and have positive experiences speaking English, you really should do your best to learn the correct pronunciation right away. And if you've learned words with the incorrect pronunciation, just correct it and practice that correct pronunciation until it is corrected. Okay? So now I want to hear from you. Which harsh truth surprised you the most? Is there anything else that you would add to this list? Please tell me in the comments below. And if you want a free PDF summary of these 6 harsh truths, please join my Telegram group. The link is also in the description. And if you're serious about improving your English with me, again, my online course is available. Link is in the description. We have weekly lives and Zoom to help you practice and gain real confidence, as well as a lot of recorded content in Portuguese and in English. So thank you again for being here. And again, if you have any questions, ask Jackie. Bye-bye.